time for the rest of today's agenda. We have a number of unbelievable students coming at around 4 o'clock. So to be sure that we give ourselves ample time to enjoy that presentation, we're going to pick up Ed Policy where we left. What happened to my chair? Where'd she go? Peter, can you read her notes for? Then we will move to finance. And to the extent we can, we will pick up the other 3 committees today, but if not, we'll move them to tomorrow. So that's our game plan for the rest of the afternoon. So
George is vice chair. So
George, please, would you reconvene the Committee on Ed Policy for the item we passed?
All right, how exciting. Will the Committee on Education Policy please reconvene? We have one remaining item on today's agenda. Item 2 is an information item regarding student-athlete academic support. That item will be presented by Ray Murillo, Director of Student Programs, Diane Harrison, President of CSU Northridge, Anita Barker, Athletic Director for CSU Chico, and Nico Diamato, Student-Athlete at CSU Fullerton. Mr. Murillo, please begin.
Thank you, Trustee Reyes. So over the course of the last year, we have provided regular updates about Graduation Initiative 2025 and the steps we are taking to ensure all students have the opportunity to be successful and earn a quality degree in a timely manner. Today, we would like to take a look at student success through a specific lens, that of the CSU student athlete. Intercollegiate athletics provide a number of ways for students to enhance their academic experience by allowing them to connect with their campus and develop a sense of belonging. CSU campus athletic programs provide academic support services for more than 7,000 student athletes system-wide. At the CSU, no matter what conference or sport student athletes participate in, they are students before athletes. Student athletes must meet and maintain specific academic standards, including progress to degree, to maintain their athletic eligibility. CSU campuses with athletic programs provide academic support targeted at all student athletes to help ensure they are successful not only on the court or on the field, but also in the classroom. There are 2 main athletic associations that govern collegiate sports. The smaller National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, or NAIA, and the larger National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA. Within these associations, there are specific divisions, each of which has its own requirements in regards to recruitment and eligibility. 22 campuses have athletic programs. 1, Cal Maritime, is in NAIA. The rest are in NCAA, with 9 campuses in Division I and 12 campuses in Division II. To convey the way that campuses support student athletes, we felt it was best shared by members of our campus communities. To share the perspective of campus leadership, I would now like to invite CSU Northridge President Diane Harrison to discuss the role of the NCAA and the responsibility campuses have to ensure that student athletes are succeeding academically. President Harrison has a unique perspective. Not only is she president of an NCAA Division I school, she also serves on several national athletics-related boards. President Harrison.
thank you, Ray, and good afternoon, everybody. CSUN has a vibrant athletic program with approximately 350 student athletes competing in 19 different NCAA Division I sports. But before I get too far into what we're doing at CSUN, I wanted to give a brief overview of the NCAA new governance structure, new in the past 3 years. Next slide. The NCAA is a member-driven association, i.e. they are us. It is comprised of 1,123 colleges and universities and 98 different athletic conferences across the nation. It's governed by a 20-member board of governors, of which I am a member. The charge of the governors is to uphold and advance the NCAA's core values of fairness, safety, and equal opportunity for all student athletes. The 98 athletic conferences are divided into 3 divisions, 1, 2, and 3, and are generally aligned by like-minded campuses in the areas of philosophy, competition, opportunity, and budgets. Division 1 is further subdivided into the Football Bowl Series, the Football Championship Series, and Division 1 No Football, which is where CSUN lies. Each division, 1, 2, and 3, is represented by a board or president's council. Both the division boards and the overarching board of governors have various committees that work to monitor and continuously advance the NCAA's support of student athletes, including matters of health and safety, financial support, and academic support services. Related to NCAA financial support, there are many mechanisms within the NCAA structure to provide revenue to the various conferences and member institutions. In the past, most of the revenue, frankly, was distributed on the basis of competitive success. As a result of a new TV media contract and a new strategic plan, the Division I board adopted a new revenue distribution model that rewards academic achievement. The revenue distribution principles were amended to incorporate the division's core values, specifically to include a reward for academic achievement. In order to qualify for this distribution, institutions would have to meet at least one of the criteria that you see on this slide. For clarification, the APR, or academic progress rate, is a team-based metric that accounts for the eligibility and retention of each student athlete for each academic term. The graduation success rate, or GSR, was developed by the NCAA for Division I institutions and includes first-time freshmen, transfer students, and mid-year enrollees, unlike the federal graduation rate. For CSUN, the distribution, this potential distribution, would provide a huge boost to our athletic budget. The NCAA characterizes CSUN as a limited resourced institution due to being in the bottom 10% of athletic budgets in our division, and because of the large number of Pell students that we serve. The distribution for an institution which qualifies under this new model is estimated to provide approximately $55,000 the first year, building up to $550,000 in year 10. The NCAA also supports limited resource institutions with grants, and CSUN has been the recipient of these funds as well. In 2012, CSUN received a grant in the amount of $900,000 from the NCAA to support our Matador Achievement Center, the academic support services program for our student athletes. The grant, with our matching obligation, provided a critical injection of funds to help us build the program that we have today. It allowed us to create new space on campus that was inviting for student athletes. It allowed us to hire several new positions, provide new technology for student use like laptops, iPads, and Wi-Fi hotspots to be used on team travel. It provided additional training for coaches, staff, tutors, and mentors in evidence-based approaches to students at academic risk, and much more. And under that much more category, it helped us identify gaps in our programming. One such example that emerged was a result of this grant is our Summer Bridge program for incoming freshman student athletes. It provides workshops for student athletes on financial aid, budgeting, compliance, nutrition, sports psychology, stress management, and other more standard orientation experiences. So what have been our results? Our math class success rates have grown by more than 30% for our student athletes, and 100% of the participants in Summer Bridge passed a GE course for credit during that summer. More than 90% of our student athletes also reported positive experiences, including feeling more confident, a greater sense of engagement with the campus community, and better able to communicate with their professors, all important factors in ultimate student success. The NCAA also provided another financial grant to us to support the National Urban Alliance's engagement on campus to share proven pedagogy for students of color. Since our faculty do not just teach student athletes, in the classroom. All of the students in their classrooms piloted in this program benefited by this investment. I'd like to share some additional examples of programming to support the academic success of our student athletes. We have additional mentors, tutors, and advisors available to the student athletes. We now have 44 hours per week of supervised study hours. There is a learning specialist program providing more intrusive support for those student athletes who need extra help. The Matador Connection provides life skills programming to include preparation for graduate school, networking, and career and job preparation. And our faculty engagement programs have also been successful. To support the faculty-student connection, our Under Armour faculty maintain office hours in the Matador Achievement Center. Some are also assigned as first-time freshman mentors, a mandatory program for all new freshman student athletes. We've also implemented a travel abroad program this past summer. 2 faculty members chaperoned 14 student athletes from 9 different teams on a 2-week service trip to Costa Rica. The feedback from this program was really tremendous, noting that for many of these student athletes, they'd never been out of the country and in large part had never considered a study abroad experience, primarily because of their athletic demands. So we were very happy that they were able to participate. Our programming has been showing signs of success. You'll see on the numbers in the slide in front of you, our federal graduation rate, which as a reminder only includes first-time freshmen for student athletes, is currently 9% over our entire student population. And the next slide, the Ncaa graduation success rate, which includes transfers, is even higher, increasing almost 9% in the last year. Our student athletes represent the university and serve as a tool for student body and community engagement. We are proud of them, and we will always strive to ensure that they have the support systems in place to be academically successful. I have provided each of you a copy of our athletics annual report for 2016-17 that shares the highlights of our program to include more about our student athlete success on and equally as important to us off the field as well. Thank you.
Thank you, President Harrison. As President Harrison mentioned, the APR, Academic Progress Rate, is a team-based metric the Ncaa uses to measure the academic success of student athletes in Division I schools. We are pleased that the CSU average is trending upward. For the 2009 cohort, it was 975, up from 968 for the 2006 cohort. Every CSU division campus scores well above the minimum 930 score set by the Ncaa. The progress in student-athlete academic success is due in part to what we heard President Harrison just describe, the academic support services provided these students, ensuring they are succeeding academically and progressing toward a degree. Beginning before the first day of classes, campuses provide new student orientations and for student athletes that provide information about campus programs, services and activities, and helping them register for classes. All student athletes meet with their academic counselors regularly. Academic counselors offer assistance with degree program planning, course sequencing and selection, and help student athletes understand Ncaa academic eligibility rules. Early warning systems are implemented to help counselors and tutors intervene if it appears a student athlete is in danger of falling behind academically. Additionally, campuses offer personal development opportunities, helping student athletes develop financial literacy, time management, and study skills to ensure they are successful in their studies, their sport, and their future. I would now like to invite Ms. Anita Barker, Athletic Director at CSU Chico, to talk about some of the academic support services offered on her campus and to share more about the student-athlete experience. Ms. Barker?
Thank you. At Chico State, we utilize a multifaceted approach to support our student athletes. Within the Department of Athletics, our full-time NCAA compliance director serves as the primary resource for guidance related to NCAA Division II eligibility rules. He also works hand in glove with the staff from academic advising services, admissions, and enrollment management to support the academic progress of our students. Like many of our campuses, we've collaborated with the academic advising to develop a mandatory academic advising policy, which requires every student athlete to meet with an academic advisor every semester. Student athletes' course loads are monitored and degree progress is certified by staff outside of the athletics department. We also work collaboratively with our campus colleagues to engage, empower, and support our student athletes outside the classroom. Regular interaction with areas such as the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Student Life and Leadership, Student Judicial Affairs, Residents Life and Counseling and Wellness provide our coaching staff and athletic staff with a network of resources to provide support when needed. I am proud to share that our student athletes have trended at or above the campus four-year graduation rate for the past decade. Chico State's Division II academic success rate has held steady at 72%, and our student athlete GPA is annually above the general campus population. As a Division II institution, a priority is to engage our student athletes in the campus community to develop life skills that will serve them in the future. One highlight from last year is our Student Athlete Advisory Committee initiative, We Don't Say. The students use their platform as student leaders to raise awareness about language that marginalizes or offends particular groups of people. The group worked with our campus creative media and technology staff to produce a poster series and video depicting language they choose not to use. The campaign was revealed via social media on October 18th, 2016. It quickly went viral, reaching 2.9 million users on Facebook, with over 40,000 reactions, 20,000 comments, and 8,000 shares. Of the reactions, 87% were positive. However, the negative reactions included threats, name-calling, and mocking. Despite this backlash, the student athletes remain committed, insisting that the campaign continue. They've received many accolades for their work, but most importantly, a strong lesson in advocacy and social justice, tools that will serve them well in their future. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. The programs at CSU Chico are helping student athletes on that campus succeed academically and progress to a degree, and are representative of what is offered at all CSU campuses with athletic programs. We have now heard about a student-athlete experience from the perspective of a campus president and a campus athletic director. I would now like to invite Nico De Amato, a student and member of the Titan soccer team from CSU Fullerton, to share his experience and how he has been supported during his time on campus. Mr. De Amato.
As the first in my family to pursue a college degree, I'm grateful to be here today. The opportunity to be a student athlete at Cal State Fullerton has been the best 4 years of my life. I can still remember my first step onto the field at 18. It was a early cold morning with 45 student athletes competing for a spot on the team. It was a very intimidating experience, and I am thrilled to be here today. I've enjoyed every minute, even when it was difficult. Over time, I gained confidence and composure. Everyone says that school is hard. In my mind, school is easy. Life is the challenging part. What I've learned most is the tenacity to push through tough times. I saw my teammates work hard in the classroom, even when they were exhausted, and I learned to do the same. My family has always been a tremendous support for me, and they taught me the value of hard work. Earning my degree has been my #1 priority. My dad is a huge advocate of school. Only having his high school diploma, he still says that if you want to go to school until you are 50, you should. You gain so much knowledge. It is a big deal for me and my family to be the one to show that we can do it. Having access to academic resources was important to my success. My academic counselors helped me stay on track and guided me in making difficult decisions. I would stop in just to say hi and talk about life as well. Our life skills programming has also helped me with career development to be prepared for life after college. I hope to go on to become a physician's assistant when I graduate. Overall, my experience as a student athlete has been life-changing. The lessons I have learned have shaped me, and I have made friendships that will last a lifetime. My time at Cal State Fullerton has prepared me well for my next life adventure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amato. So from the first day that student athletes set foot on CSU campuses until the day they cross the commencement stage, they have access to a host of student academic services designed to ensure that they have the support needed to succeed in college and earn a degree in a timely manner. And the data indicates these services are successful. At the CSU, student athletes graduate at higher rates than the overall student population, and that rate has grown over the past 3 years. What is notable about this data, however, is that while the graduation rate for student athletes has climbed slightly, the gap between the student athletes and the general population has narrowed. This is not accidental. Rather, it is a result of a concerted effort by campuses in the first stage of the graduation initiative to improve graduation rates for the general student population, scaling the successful strategies used with student athletes to serve students across the campus. This work continues as part of the Graduation Initiative 2025. The programs you've heard about today, intrusive academic advising, early warning systems, development of financial literacy and time management, are best practices being implemented across the CSU to all students to help them be successful and earn a degree in a timely manner. Trustee Campbell, that concludes our presentation. All of today's presenters are available to answer any questions from the board may have.
Thank you for this presentation. No worries. It's it's great to hear from a student, and we definitely wish you the best in your future endeavors. Are there any questions or comments from the board? We'll start with Trustee Simon.
What a wonderful presentation. Thank you for your story. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, I was envisioning your family and you out on that cold field. But I also was thinking about the huge toll, the sort of the psychic and physical toll of being a student athlete and having a full course load and the amazing services that you all provided. There have been, in the press over the last couple of years, I'm sure, decades before, but new research and findings that articulate the mental health and also the stress and the physicality, the difficult physicality on student athletes. You talked a lot about the support services. I'm directing this at staff, the support services for academics. Could you briefly touch on some of the mental health supports and physical support, I should say physiological? I know we have physicians on campus, but can you just talk to the board briefly about some of the other services that are provided to these students who arguably are working 2 jobs? They're full-time students and also representing the California State University because of their gifts. So how are we supporting them in other ways outside of academics?
So over the past few years, the campuses have expanded their mental health services tremendously. We started with a statewide grant, Cal Mesa, that really helped us revamp our services, and most, if not all of our campuses have increased our staffing in the mental health efforts. We've had Red Folder, which is kind of know the signs about mental health and mental distress and so forth, so that everyone, whether it be a coach, whether it be a faculty member or a staff member, can make the appropriate referral and identify the students who may be in distress. Specifically with the athletic programs, I'd like to invite President Harrison to comment on what they're doing within their programs, and perhaps even Anita Barker.
I think at the national level, the Ncaa has recognized that there are health and mental health and student safety and well-being issues that are being addressed. And there is a whole segment of the association that is focused on making new requirements, quite frankly, for campuses as to how they need to address these. And these go beyond just health and or medical and mental health. They include sexual assault and other issues. In Division I now, there is a requirement due to the studies related to concussion, for example, that there has to be a medical administrator in charge, not the coach, not the athletic director, who will make all decisions related to whether a player can continue playing or not at that moment, at that spot. There are many other different toolkits that they have put together, some related to health and safety and the trainers, athletic trainers, and what they should be doing or not. There are issues around repetitive injuries. There are issues around and toolkits on the specific mental health needs, which we know are common, and certainly common as they are in our general student population. But for student athletes, there are some slight differences, if you will, meaning that it's very difficult for a student athlete who is supposed to be performing at their peak to confess that they're depressed, or confess that they have an anxiety or an eating disorder, or, any of those things. So there's a little bit different. But
So I
there
have a
are
quick
toolkits.
follow-up question then to that, and I promise this will be short, is when students, I met a young man who was not in our system, but the other state system, and was a starter on the football team. And in his junior year, he was injured so badly that he could no longer play. The beauty is he ended up graduating speaking Arabic. He was taking a second language and going to graduate school at MIT, and is now in the armed services. But he talked about the physical, mental stress of not only being able to not play anymore, but losing that community. I'm wondering how the CSU, and I know you all can only speak from the experiences of now, but how have we and how do we support players when they're injured and they're no longer able to play? And do they lose their scholarships? And are they moved off campus? We don't necessarily have to answer this question now, but as you're talking about the enormity and the brilliance and the gifts of these students and the amazing staffing that we provided to support them, and the coaches and the staff, I can just imagine that this is just not easy work. And so what does our university system do to students who unfortunately, in the line of duty, so to speak, can no longer participate? Especially since so many of them come in with scholarships and supports because of their athletic gifts.
Well, speaking specifically to the resources, we're a Division II institution, so some of our resources are a little bit different than what you may read in the media related to college athletics. But related specifically to students that struggle with issues on our campus, we utilize the same resources that the campus population uses. Specifically, ours is called a care team, which identifies students who are struggling across the board. And we are, just like our colleagues across campus can plug our student athletes into that, which gets them resources to the Accessibility Resource Center, to other, the Counseling and Wellness Center, the Student Health Center, places like that. And that's not just for an injury on the athletic field, but that is, if we have someone who pops up with behavior across the campus. So I think that's a resource that we're tapping into. Specifically to your question, I wanted to add one comment earlier. Dr. Harrison mentioned Division II has also adopted the policy that to identify an independent medical administrator on campuses. That began this fall. That rule began this fall, which eliminates the opportunity for coaches to have the authority, whether perceived or real, to make a return to play kind of decision. In fact, takes it completely out of their hands. As far as resources go for supporting student athletes long term, the NCAA has resources for all campuses to, if it's a catastrophic type event, which would require long-term support. And interestingly enough, catastrophic by the terms of the NCAA is a dollar value, not necessarily a type of injury. So if a certain severe injury exceeds a certain dollar value, then that would fall into that category, which would provide that student athlete with long-term care. And then I would just add that specific to the concussion piece recently, as a result of a lawsuit, any student who has suffered historically from a concussion has access to resources dating back to pretty much the record of athletics at the NCAA. So I think there's a lot of movement in that direction. There's still a lot of work to be done, but there's a lot of movement.
And our students do not lose their scholarship from injury.
Trustee Taylor?
Thank you very much. I had two questions. One, the same question from Trustee Simon. I'm glad she raised it. because likewise, I do hope we take very good care of our athletes who in fact are injured, whether it be catastrophic or not, because they become part of the family when they step on the campus, and let's remember to always appreciate that fact. Actually, a question for Mr. D'Amato, and thinking through your academic career and the various kinds of supports you had as a student athlete, whether it be the intrusive advising or the orientations or the tutorials or what have you. If you could take one of those and expand it to the entire student body to help drive student success, what would it be? What made the difference for you, and what was most valuable to you in terms of those various support systems?
I believe the counselors did a big part for me. Like I said, they helped me make very difficult decisions, and I think it was very reassuring. Whether I had 2-3 options on the table, they helped me eliminate options and just kind of talk through it and made me feel better about that. And if I had another option would be, I'm not sure how it would be for the rest of campus, but we had a study hall area that not everyone has the money to afford laptops and things like that, and I think that was a big help for all of us athletes. That regardless if you're on the list to be in study hall or not, you're always in there using the computers or the tutors, and yeah.
Great, thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments from the board? Lieutenant Governor Newsom.
Thanks, George. Thank you, by the way, colleagues, for indulging me. I appreciate you continue this item as I was stuck on a plane. So a couple thoughts and questions, and I'm very cognizant of time, and I don't want to be that guy. That said, I want to do a little justice to this conversation. Look, I appreciate the presentation. It was very positive, but not everything is positive, as we know, particularly in revenue-generating sports. And this presentation was not specific about revenue-generating sports in contrast to overall athletics, which it's absolutely true. Your cohort of graduation rates is much higher as you look at the broader student-athlete population. But as you look at more specifically those revenue-generating sports, I don't know that we can say the same thing, particularly football, and men's basketball, and surprisingly, women's basketball as well. Let's not forget, we've been fined, we've been penalized. Madam President, you have intimate familiarity, and you handled it extraordinarily well, by the way, with those issues. And we are failing a lot of our athletes because we put enormous amount of pressure and time constraints on them. The Ncaa has a 20-hour provision. I don't know many Division I football or basketball players, and Ncaa, perhaps in soccer it's different, that are limited to just 20 hours a week of practice, which is a legal requirement pursuant to the Ncaa. I imagine your colleagues who play basketball and football, I imagine you sometimes during the season wish it was only 20 hours because it puts enormous amount of pressure on your academic experience and your academic capacity. There was an infamous comment from a well-known quarterback at our sister institution, Jeff Rosen, just a few weeks ago at UCLA, who sort of called it out, said it was laughable, the notion of student athlete, that he has 2 full-time jobs and everybody knows what gives, and that the eligibility is really all about eligibility. It's not about academic performance. They go in to deal with red flags in order to maintain eligibility because of the pressures of these athletes to win and win at all costs. I am profoundly passionate about athletics. It's the reason I'm literally sitting here as a recipient of a modest scholarship that afforded me a college experience in the first place. But I'm also passionate about meeting our goals and meeting the spirit which we hold ourselves in every other aspect of this system. And I'm not convinced we're doing it with particularly African-American athletes in our football and basketball programs. I would note, and colleagues, I don't know if you've seen it, we have we're falling below the national average in almost, without exception, rarely are we above the national average in our Division I men basketball and football programs. I mean, all the shaded parts of this are where we're falling well short. There's, in fact, I think it's Fresno State and San Jose State basketball haven't met the national average in over 6 years. And I think you can argue 7 because I just got some new numbers. So we're not even coming close. And I don't know that there's enough accountability to that. But I also know that, it's the old adage, you want to move the mouse, you got to move the cheese. I don't know that we incentivize good behavior. I appreciate the 985 APR is a good incentive. We're not, by the way, immediate with only 2 exceptions in any of those or anywhere. But I also don't think we incentivize it in our contracts. And I bet if we looked under the hood, and I hope for the benefit in the future, we can get a presentation about what our contracts look like. What are we incentivizing? What are we paying for? Are we paying for, if it's, and I heard the quote, students before athletics. If that's the case, then I imagine, and I don't mean to be argumentative, but I'm being modestly so, that our contracts would reflect that. And I just bet if I looked at the basketball and football contracts, that the incentives are skewed a little more towards athletic performance than academic performance. I bet they're not even close. And if you're like UCLA, you're not even, you got to come up with a new definition of not even close. So I think we have to get on the hood a little bit more and be a little more nuanced in this conversation and have a discussion that broadens. We got to understand this a little more. If you understand, I'm just learning this, and the more I learn, a little more upset I get. And I'll tell you, the UCs, this, by the way, started, UC Berkeley had the lowest graduation rates in Division I football in the United States of America, UC Berkeley. And their basketball and football program a few years ago was 42 and 33% or something. Peter, I don't remember, you just left around that time. It was comedic. And so we decided to change the contracts, start incentivizing an AD contracts, the athletic director contracts, different framework of incentives. We came out with a 14-point plan. And we basically codified a lot of the things that you're codifying. And I know Fullerton's got some best practices. And I know President Harris and others have some at the campus level, but broadening them to all of the campuses. And I just think for the purpose, and I'm sorry to be so long-winded, for the purposes of this conversation, I hope it's the beginning of a conversation that's a little bit more nuanced and gets to these finer points, particularly with these programs, these basketball and football programs, and a selective group of campuses, so that we can have a more honest conversation about where we are and where we need to go. So it's as much more commentary and concern as it is a question, obviously. As it relates to what I thought was a very good presentation. And Nico, thank you for participating in this as well. Any comments generally?
Yes, please. One of the things that we struggle with in Division I, let me just speak about that for a moment, and quite frankly, I would add 2 and 3, is the broad brush that gets used when athletics are described. And so what you're describing are what I would term much more common in the Power 5 conferences. And when you talk about revenue generating sports, I have one.
Right.
And it's not generating all that much revenue. So there really is a huge different landscape depending on the kinds of teams, the amount of revenue that they do bring in. You know that there's only the top 1% barely of institutions that actually make money on football or athletics, men's basketball, but the quest is very competitive. No question about it that people do want to win. I mean, if you're going to offer athletic programs, I told our coaches last week, I love when you win. But winning is also not just on the field or on the court. It's in the classroom. And so I expect that there will be that win as well. We do have it in our AD and in our coaches' contracts. I believe the CSU just assessed that 2 years ago on when you asked how many had included that in language. And I believe most, if not all of us, have academic incentives. Mine are equal weight with what they achieve on the field.
That's great.
And I even have a caveat: if the academics aren't working, nothing's working. So it really is different, and I think you have to I would ask you to just be a little bit cautious about broad brushing all of us with the same stroke. That Power 5 conference mindset and environment, which is very real. I spent many years at one of those institutions, and I know firsthand what that is, what that competition is. I would also add, and then I will be quiet, that the Board of Governors and the Board of Directors of the entire NCAA, as well as the Division I, is extremely sensitive to what you just described.
Yeah, no,
And we have been working really hard. I mean, the fact of the new revenue distribution model, that's a first. That is a first.
Big deal.
Within 10 years, the amount of revenue distributed on the basis of academics will equal that to how you do in the Final Four.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
But isn't that's the opportunity for us to now step up our game, because
Yes.
we're right there. And
Yes.
There's a serious amount of money, as you suggest. And that's why, again, it sort of animates my let's get this right
Yes.
moment.
We'll
Well,
go to
I think there's a movement to try and do that, is my point. It's going to take some time, because you cannot take money away from people easily.
thank you. We'll go to Trustee Furstenberg.
This is an issue I care passionately about as well, and I appreciate your coming and being here. I'd like to, and I think you make really, really good points. I'd like to take the other side of the table and say I think for Cal State that our student athletic program is spectacular. And I want to, I seem to be praising you all the time, President Harrison, but I'll tell you, when I found out that a Cal State president was on the NCAA board.
Yeah.
And let me just say this, a woman president on the NCAA board, I was really proud. This is a great, you represent all of us when you sit at that table. And our student athletes represent just what this institution stands for. And to me, we are represented so well by our most luminous student athlete, and that's Billie Jean King. And I just want to put a plug in for the fact that in '72, Title IX passed.
Right.
She then devoted the next 10 years of her life to the implementation of that legislation. In 1973, she played in the Battle of the Sexes. And opening on Friday, I don't have to say anymore. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions, Chair Eisen, that concludes the committee in education.
If I may, just through the chair, real quick, can I ask? I mean, I appreciate everything you said, Madam President, and I applaud your leadership, and I also applaud Mark Emmert's leadership too. I mean, who's become a friend through this. Ironically, he reached out to me when I was ranting and raving at the UC system, and there's real sincerity in turning this around. And you're absolutely right. Let's not paint a broad brush. And I guess I didn't make the point I was trying to make, which was making that point, but specifically looking more specifically at football and basketball programs at a select group of our campuses. But is it possible, and can I indulge you? Can I without, whatever the request, to take a look at some of these contracts, or moreover, I don't need to see, I'd love to see the presidents take a look at their own contracts, their coaches. And I imagine you have, but if you haven't in a while, it'd be good to do that and think about what President Harrison was saying in terms of coming up with some balance. I get it. You want to still recruit. You want to win. We don't want to put too much pressure. We don't want a mass exodus. We had all these points of concern, red flags at the UC system. But there's a way when these contracts come up to start, leaning in the right direction, a more enlightened direction. It sounds like you've done that. And I would encourage your colleagues, if they haven't, and I imagine many of you have, and I'm grateful to do the same. So I just hope we can come back to this and be a little more nuanced in the presentation and updates as well.
Yeah, Chancellor White.
Yeah, we'll be nuanced in the future. I want to commend President, Athletic Director, and Ncaa and Gavin and Gene and everybody who's commented on this, and Ray for pulling it together. Everything was good for me with one thing. And that is, Nico, I know you love your dad, and his advice to stay in school till you're 50 would have absolutely screwed up the graduation rates. Would have made us on the wrong side of the graduation initiative. So we'll find another way to keep you around till age 50, okay? Congratulations to you, young man.
Definitely. Chair Eisen, that concludes the Committee on Educational Policy.
Thank you, Vice Chair Reyes Salinas. We're now going to turn to the